So we have money. We're imagining a simple island economy still, with a fixed number of people on it, or just to keep it simple. But they've invented money. They realized they have too many people and the world became too complex to just barter. So they've created money. And that helped a lot. But let's remind ourselves that each of these people is out hunting and gathering, and so they're each producing some quantity of goods. Each individual is producing some quantity of goods. So I could have added all of those up for all the people in my little economy. I initially had 10 people, but now there's more. And when I add all that up, I get a total quantity, which in economics we call real GDP. And we use little y to denote real GDP. So we could add up GDP. It would be kind of a weird number because it'd be apples plus oranges plus fish plus whatever else is made on this island. But we can get a real GDP. Now that we have money, a couple of things would probably happen, and we establish trading centers. One, let's suppose this person quits hunting and producing and now just manages a store. Maybe this person does too, maybe somebody over here. In reality, somebody probably becomes in charge of managing money and producing actual money. Let's call that person this person here. So maybe that's in historically that might be a banker. And later in history, those people became central bankers, the head of the Fed in the United States, for example. They are pulled out of the production process and are now just managing money, right? So that has value because it frees up so much time because it reduces transaction costs that everybody else has more time available to go and hunt and gather. So you more than gain by pulling this one person offline to manage the money, and the rest of the people can now go hunt and gather, and a couple of people can specialize in things like managing a store. That is Adam Smith's famous note that the degree of specialization is purely limited by the scope of the market. Okay? So now we have some stores. Notice what's happening though. Okay? Now that there's money, this person is going to take whatever they hunted and gathered and sell it to that store, and in exchange, they'll get some cash. That person will then take that cash and maybe go give it to this store in order to get, say, some shoes or whatever they bought. Okay? That store owner is probably going to take that cash and go over to this store and buy whatever they're selling down here, right? So a single dollar went from this store over to here and then down to here. It changed hands 2 or 3 times. So one of the things that emerges is prices emerge for each good. So we can now have a price for each individual quantity. So I could put a price for bananas and a price for that and a price for that. And now when I add up GDP, I get prices times all of real GDP. This is the price level, an average price if you like in the US economy. And we call that big Y, which is nominal GDP. That's usually the number reported every year, how big the US GDP is. It's that number. It's in dollar terms. Prices are all there. So your first thought is, how much money should we print? How much money? Well, we need to have enough money to keep this system flowing. If we put too little money, then when this person goes over to sell their food, this person doesn't have enough cash, they can't give them cash, so they can't then pass it along, so then this person can't come down here and buy something. So we have to have enough cash to keep up this initial trading system, okay? And with that trading system, we're generating some amount of GDP per year. So your first thought might be, well, let's see how much everything sells for times how much stuff there is. Let's imagine there are 100 people or 100 goods being sold, and suppose that they each sell for $1. So total GDP, nominal GDP, is $100. So your first inclination might be, well, we should have 100 $1 bills. And that's the amount of money we should print. Turns out that's not quite right, because each dollar changes hands several times. So if a total amount of trade was going on, and there was $100 of trade going on this little island every week, let's say, but in the example I drew, maybe this person then takes the dollar and trades over here and gets some goods back. That single dollar traded hands 4 times in that week. So we don't need 100 $1 bills. We need 100 divided by 4. We only need 25 physical dollar bills to trade hands. And if they do, then each of them trades hands 4 times. 4 times 25 is 100, and there's enough money to keep the system going. This number is called velocity of money. And it is literally the average number of times a dollar changes hands, or a unit of currency for whatever economy you're looking at. The number of times that currency changes hands in a week, month, year, whatever, some time period. Okay? So what this means is the amount of money you want to produce is your GDP over velocity. So if my GDP is 100 and velocity is 4, I only need 25 physical dollars in that economy, and those will go around. In the United States, the actual velocity of money for our lowest level of measure of money, which is called M1, in the USA, V is actually around 5. So we would only need to print $20 bills to keep up this 100 of total trade. So the lesson here is we don't want to print too much money. We want to print just enough to facilitate this trade, but we don't want to print too little money either, because quite clearly, if we don't print enough, this whole system will shut down, and will actually hurt the economy. So we need to print enough money to finance the amount of trade that is sort of naturally occurring in this economy, but we don't want to really print too little or it hurts it, and a little too much we'll see just leads to inflation.